Welcome to another episode of Purpose Today. I'm your host, Dr. April Dobson, and I'm very excited about today's episode of Purpose Today because on the episode today, we are going to talk about something that is so near and dear to my heart. We're going to talk about the power of a purpose aligned life. And in today's episode, we're going to delve into why your body needs your life to be aligned. So maybe you've never thought about how there is a correlation between your purpose and aligning with your purpose and how it can impact your life overall, how it can impact your body. But there's actually studies that have shown that when you do something that you enjoy, it has an impact on your life, both physically, psychologically. There's just so many aspects of your life that it impacts you to be aligned with purpose and to do what you love. So on today's episode, we are going to talk about how you can assess the purpose alignment in your life. And once you've made that assessment, we're going to talk about how you can be intentional and position yourself so that you can attract purpose aligned opportunities. We are also going to delve into just why it's important, why it's necessary to make decisions that are purpose driven and why you should reflect daily to help you with that. And so if you're in a place that you feel like you're aligned in some ways, but you're not aligned in other ways, then don't go anywhere. You want to watch this episode because you want to hear how you can benefit in different areas of your life from being purpose aligned and what you can do specifically to be intentional about being purpose aligned. So it doesn't matter if you're seeking a new direction in your career, if you're seeking, just more fulfillment in your life in general, or if you're seeking fulfillment in your career. We are live tonight on 2 different YouTube pages and on LinkedIn. And I want you to put your questions in the chat. I'm going to do everything that I can to answer those. But tonight is going to have some actionable steps, some insights that you can use in your life for clarity and to move forward with confidence. So don't go anywhere. We're going to be right back after just a quick sponsor message. So stay tuned for this episode, The Power of a Purpose Aligned Life and Why Your Body Needs Your Life to Be Aligned.
Dreaming of writing a book, launching a podcast, or creating a digital course? Ready to finally align your career, creativity, and impact? The Purpose Aligned Life Premium Coaching Cohort is here to help you turn purpose into reality. You'll receive tailored services, a personalized one-on-one assessment, 10 weekly group sessions, and exclusive strategy session, all for your desired transformation.
So welcome back to this new episode of Purpose Today with Dr. April Dobson. I'm so excited for all of you who are watching today. Thank you for Veronica for saying hello in the chat. I do see your comment, so thank you so much for saying hello. I'll do my best to respond, but we're going to jump right into the power of a purpose-aligned life. And again, if you have any questions, please feel free to put those in the chat. So we're going to get started, and I do see that there are several people who are typing. I see Yosbin Ramirez has typed in the chat, but I'll do my best to type in the chat. I'll do my best to also respond orally as I see your comments coming through. So as we get started, when we talk about being purpose aligned, one of the things that is very important for you to do is to make an assessment on whether or not you're purpose aligned in your life. I think that is, key, making the assessment on whether or not you're purpose aligned. So one of the very first things that you can do is you can take a moment to pause and to, reflect on whether or not there are things that you are deeply desiring, things that you are dreaming about, things that you have a desire to do that you haven't pursued. Oftentimes the things that we are desiring to do that we haven't pursued often will indicate purpose for us, right? So if you have some things that you've been wanting to do, ask yourself whether or not you've made any efforts to do those things. Ask why you're not doing those things, and really just start to analyze where you are. You want to be truthful with yourself, right? You don't want to give yourself a narrative that's not true, that's not correct. Many times people are in a career because they've have an education, they've been in a career for decades, they've been in a career for quite some time, and they make reasons, they justify why they need to stay in that exact same career or why they need to stay in that exact same company. So you want to be sure to just really reflect and answer whether or not there's something that you've been desiring to do that you haven't done. Even if it's something that you're not even clear on how to do. So once you've reflected on whether or not there are unfulfilled desires in your life and you've uncovered why you haven't made any adjustments, look at whether or not what you're telling yourself is something that is a narrative that you're giving yourself because of things that you don't know. But if there's something that you desire to do, I always suggest that you actually start talking to people who are doing what you are desiring. If you don't mind putting in the chat, if there's something specific that you have a desire to do that you haven't tried yet, you've thought about it but you haven't tried it, and I'll be happy to give some suggestions on what you can actually do to get started. So once you've identified that area, then start doing some research to see what's necessary for you to be able to do that, and see if there's someone who you can talk to, who you can receive some wisdom from. Another thing that is important to do when you're not sure whether or not you're purpose aligned, and this should be one of the first things that you do, is just actually, pray to really see if there's something that is in your life that you haven't had an opportunity to explore, that you're dreaming about, and really obtain clarity on really what your purpose is for your life. So that is where you want to start. You want to start by identifying where you are. The other thing that is important to do, I talked a little bit earlier about making the assessment on whether or not there's something that you're desiring that you haven't done, why you actually haven't taken any actions towards that, what is holding you back, and then determine whether or not what's holding you back is really something that you're not aware of, something that you don't know, if you're not clear on how to do it, or if it's fear that is holding you back. If you are allowing fear to hold you back, you want to actually get to the root of that and find out why you are afraid. Are you afraid because this is just new territory for you and it's not something that you've done previously? Is it you're afraid because you have a sense of comfort with what you're doing and what you've always been doing? So I want to actually just take a moment to, share something that I've seen a lot of people do, and something also that I've experienced. When I made the transition from the Air Force, from active duty, into the civilian workforce, I had been in the same career for over a decade. I had spent over 10 years, 11 years to be exact, in a career called, in an intel career. And I did a special duty assignment during that time in recruiting and learned that I really loved HR. But when I left the Air Force, I actually knew that I needed to make a pivot. And in deciding to make that pivot, before deciding to make that pivot, and speaking to, people who were close to me, one of the individuals told me that, Intel makes a lot of money. Why would you want to switch from Intel to HR? And I just really knew that making the pivot would align with purpose for me, so I did it. And there was an effort that I had to put forth in making a decision and then going after what I wanted. And after that, the doors just opened. I was promoted 5 times within 8 years, and it's unheard of within the federal government. So I said that to say, if there's something that you want to do, even if you haven't done it before, and you're desiring to do it, then you should go after it. And there's always a way. And when you are pursuing your purpose, when you're doing what it is that you love, it really has an impact, a positive impact on your health. It has a positive impact. It impacts your body. Your body actually needs for you to be aligned. So I want to talk about one other key area. I want to talk about intentionally positioning yourself so that you can attract purpose-aligned opportunities. Now, one of the things that I see people do in their career, and a lot of professionals do this, is they actually put in their resume all of their experience from the most recent, and they work their way back in reverse chronological order because this is what they have done. But how many of you who are viewing today, you actually have a desire to do something different than what you've always done? And even if it's, changing sectors, whatever it is, how many of you have a desire to do something different? Just type me in the chat or drop a 1 in the chat, and I'm looking and trying to respond to what I see there as well. And I see a me, so thank you very much. It looks like Oldo, I'm sorry, Old Dog Nutrix, interesting handle there, has a desire to do that. So if you want to do something that you've never done, then you can make that pivot. So what you want to actually explore is you want to explore what in your past experience, what in your past education, what in your past skills are still necessary for what you desire to do. So just highlighting those skills, highlighting the aspects of your past experience that can be transferable to what you would like to pivot into. And when you do that, you actually take the things that are not needed or are not relevant for the new path that you'd like to do. And the same with your LinkedIn profile. You want to update your LinkedIn profile so that you keep in what is crucial for the new direction that you're heading in. But if you're spending a lot of if you're using a lot of the content in your LinkedIn profile and in your resume that doesn't relate in any way to what you desire to do, then you are not making it evident what you're desiring. And so you want to just go through and remove the information that's not relevant for where you desire, the direction that you desire to head in, and for the type of focus that you want to have. And so when you make those adjustments and you make the content that you're posting, when you make your profile and your resume relevant to the direction that you're going in, it makes it evident for anyone who reviews your resume, evident for anyone who reviews your LinkedIn profile of what for you is important and what for you aligns with the direction that you're heading in. So thank you so much for putting the me in the chat on YouTube. I do really appreciate you for doing that. And, one of the other things that you want to do is you want to also start having informational interviews with individuals who are doing something that aligns with what you desire to do, and ask them very pointed questions regarding what is necessary for what you're desiring and some of the steps that they took. So you want to go in with questions written down and ask those questions so that you can gain clarity on what will help you to go in that direction and make that pivot. Now, those are ways that you can help to intentionally position yourself to attract purpose-aligned opportunities. You can also participate in networking events. You can participate in virtual courses. You can participate in seated courses, in-person courses that relate to what your desired outcome. So those are some things that you can do to begin to attract purpose-aligned opportunities. If you have relevant experience, some that's transferable to what you desire to do, you can actually post articles. There's different things that you can do to attract your audience. If there's something that you have subject matter expertise in, but you haven't formally done that as a primary career, it's been something that you've had volunteer work, or perhaps it's something that you have done on a part-time basis, or something that you've done on a detail or a special duty assignment, then perhaps you can use those skills to launch a podcast about the variances between what you would customarily do and what you did as a volunteer effort, or as a hobby, or whatever the case may be. And so these are ways that you can attract opportunities that are purpose aligned. And then another thing that you want to really think about is reflecting daily. You want to take time daily to reflect and really ask yourself if your activities from that day were aligned with purpose, and if your activities from that day are taking you in the direction that you desire to go. And also, when you're making decisions, you want to determine how those decisions will, or the outcome of those decisions will align with your purpose. So all of these are very important, very key. Now that we know some things that you can do that will help you to be purpose aligned, I want to talk about some of the benefits of being purpose aligned from a physical standpoint, from an emotional standpoint, from a psychological standpoint. It's very important to be purpose aligned. Now, for those of you who are watching, I don't want you to put it in the chat because there isn't a reason for you to necessarily share, but I want you to think about whether or not you've ever been in a career, if you've ever been doing something that you did not enjoy doing, and how that impacted you. I want you to think about whether or not you notice changes, like physically, if you notice changes with your sleep patterns. All of these things can be impacted when we are not aligned with purpose. And so you want to be intentional to ensure that you're doing what you love. And so there's actually been numerous studies that have shown that there is a clear link between, when people will engage in activities that are enjoyable, it actually lowers stress levels. So there was a study that was done, and in that study, it was in a behavioral medicine study. It found that individuals who spent more of their time on leisure activities that they enjoyed, they actually had lower blood pressure, they had reduced cortisol levels, and that's the stress hormone, and they had greater levels of positive emotion. And so with that research, the final conclusion of that research, if you will, showed that different leisure activities gave a really good buffer against stress. Now, if we turn it around, right, and we look at if you're spending a lot of time doing something that you don't enjoy, then it does the opposite, right? It'll raise your blood pressure. It'll actually increase your cortisol levels, the stress hormone. And so you want to be intentional about ensuring that as you're making decisions on how to navigate through life, through your career, that you are doing what you love, and that you're, continuing to be aligned with your purpose. There was also a study that was done in the Journal of Positive Psychology. And in that study, over 11,000 participants were actually participating And in that, it found that pursuing personal, meaningful activities had a strong correlation and association with higher satisfaction in life and lower depressive symptoms. So the key takeaway with those psychological benefits of doing something that you love, reducing your stress and improving your mood, really shows that when you're engaging in activities that you find enjoyable. Now again, you want to find things that you find enjoyable, because what one person might deem to be enjoyable may not be enjoyable, for another person. But doing that will actually lower stress levels and improve moods overall. And then it also showed that people who regularly do what they love will experience greater resilience psychologically. So I want to, for anybody who is still connected, if you can just put something that you enjoy in the chat. It can be something that you enjoy, personally. Maybe it's painting, maybe it's fishing, maybe it's taking walks. If you can put something that you enjoy in the chat, or if you want to put something that you enjoy professionally, then I invite you to put that in the chat on YouTube. But doing so can be very, very beneficial. And then the second area that studies have shown is that there are physical health improvements that come from actually doing what you love. And so there was a research that was done by Blue Zones, and that research was led by Dan Buettner, and it was published in the American Journal of Lifestyle Medicine. And there were communities worldwide where people live, healthy lives. They live long lives, and so there was a study that was done. And so one of the consistent findings showed that people who had a clear sense of purpose and passion in what they were doing, they actually had lower rates of heart disease and longer lifespans. So it's very important to not only just think about the things that you enjoy, but that you incorporate them into your daily life. And then also think about, from a professional standpoint, what do you enjoy professionally? It is actually possible to have a career and a life that you love, but you'll have to build it. You'll have to be intentional about it. And so it's important that as you're navigating through life, you're doing what you love in leisure activities, and you're doing what you love professionally, and you're aligning with your purpose and your passion. So I do encourage you to use the steps that I talked about earlier, and ensuring that you're reflecting and you're taking those steps so that you can attract opportunities that are purpose aligned. And again, I do appreciate all of you for joining on today. Now, I want to continue on, and any questions that you have, feel free to put those in the chat. There was another study that was done, and it was featured in, it was a study that was done in psychosomatic medicine, actually, and individuals who were participants of that study who had a strong sense of purpose and were engaged in meaningful activities, they actually had a 23% reduced risk of death from all causes, including cardiovascular disease. And so the key finding in that study, and in both of the studies, that I just mentioned with the Blue Zones research and with the psychosomatic medicine, was that purpose-driven individuals do have a lower risk of chronic diseases. And when you are engaging in daily activities that you enjoy, that is linked to lower mortality rates. So if you want to live longer and you want to have a lower risk for chronic disease, that it's important to do what you're purposed to do and align with passion. Now I want to talk about another area and another benefit. So again, on today's episode, we are really focusing, and I know a lot of times we don't think about the correlation between purpose, our passion, and our health and how it impacts our health. But there is power in a purpose aligned life. And so your body really needs your life to be aligned. And so the next area that I want to take some time to talk about is I want to talk about the social side and the cognitive side, really talking about the benefits socially and the cognitive benefits that really come from doing what you love, come from being aligned with purpose and doing what you're passionate about. And so according to a study in health psychology, people who regularly engaged in hobbies or social activities that they enjoy have stronger social networks and they have better immune function. So, how many of you actually knew that your involvement in what you do, what you love, involvement in social activities actually had an impact on your immune system? And I see there's some questions in the chat, but just put a yes or a no if you knew that there was actually a correlation between your immune system and doing what you love. So I see a question that says, how do I discover my true purpose in life? And thank you so much for that question, Dirk. I talked a little bit about this earlier. I do believe prayer is essential, very important. Whenever we want to know something about a ninja bullet, you go to the manufacturer if you want to see how its function, why it was created, what it can do. If you want to know something about a Tesla, then you would go to Tesla. You wouldn't go to Mercedes or to Ford or to Chevrolet. So I do believe it's important to pray. We go to our Creator to learn our purpose. But I also shared earlier that it's important to ensure that you're paying attention to the deep desires that you have, because our deep desires often are revealing of areas and elements of purpose in our lives. Additionally, the things that you see in the world that bother you and that make you unsettled and make you feel that there is something that needs to be done, the things that you just can't ignore, those are often pointing to evidence of our purpose. And so it's very important to, first pray and also ensure that you're not ignoring deep desires that you have. I know that there's a scripture that talks about many are the plans in a man's heart, but it's the Lord's purpose that will prevail. And often, and that that God gives us the desires of our heart, and oftentimes what we're deeply desiring aligns and correlates with our purpose. So those are just some ways that you can discover your true purpose, Dirk. So thank you so much for asking that. So Cody asks, can purpose change as we grow older? Absolutely. Our purpose can change. Our purpose can expand. It can evolve. And so it's very important for us to, continually, pray to ensure that we are discovering our purpose. And yes, it can definitely change as you grow older. And so thank you, Cody, for asking that question. Jason says, how do you balance passion and financial stability? Jason, I love this question. I believe a lot of people will make an assessment or they'll have a misconception that because I've been doing something in my career, I've been in a specific industry, I've had a specific type of business, I can't do something else. They'll have the misconception that they can't do something else because they have what they would consider as career stability for people who are in the traditional workforce, and they may feel that they have financial stability, for people who are entrepreneurs. But I've often discovered that when people are aligned with their purpose and their passion, and they are continuing to be committed to growth and committed to developing and evolving, that typically they open up opportunities when they are more purpose aligned. We can look at some of the innovations that have come over the last few years. Many of you probably grew up with your parents saying, don't get in the car with strangers. And we have Uber and we have Lyft and Bolt and Yango and all these other platforms that connect riders with drivers, and you get in a car with someone who you don't know and it solved a problem. And oftentimes when you are aligning with your purpose and your passion, you're excited to do what you're doing. You are coming up with different innovations because you're doing something that brings you excitement, that brings you joy. You're doing something that you love. But when you are in a career or a business and you're in it only for the financial gain and you don't enjoy what you're doing, you don't love what you're doing, you often miss opportunities because you're not completely present. You're not completely as engaged as you could be as if you were doing something that you love. I know I used the example earlier in leaving the career in the Air Force. I was in the Air Force for 11 years. I was medically boarded, and so I quickly shifted into the civilian field. And after returning to the workforce, I returned doing what I had been desiring to do for many, many years. And after that, I was promoted 5 times in 8 years, and it really doesn't happen in the federal government. So oftentimes you see a substantial growth and substantial increase. I'm not telling anyone to just walk away from a position that you have or walk away from a business. There's a way that you can transition into being purpose aligned and pursuing purpose and passion, and do it in a way where it's a transition where there isn't an adverse impact financially. So great question. I love that question. And if you do want to schedule a 15-minute Zoom consultation with me, I'm happy to talk specifically about your situation. If you'd like to do that, I'm more than happy to do that. And if you want to keep an eye out for the upcoming challenge that we're doing, then certainly that's also an option for you as well. But I'd be more than happy to take some time to speak with you, via Zoom, just to help you with, a strategy so that you can, if you want to pivot, and that's something that you want to do, so that you are aligned and you don't have any adverse impact from a financial standpoint. I'm more than happy to do that, and I'll be happy to put the link that you can actually book that into the chat, so that if there's something that you want to specifically discuss, then you can do that. So I'll copy the link, and it'll be available for you if you desire to do that, and you can do it based on your availability and the availability that I have. I think I might have some slots left for the 24th, and then I think everything else is next week. So great question. Thank you so much for asking that. So I just put the booking link in the chat if you'd like to use that. So I see there's another question that is in the chat. Can purpose alignment help reduce stress? So that's an excellent question, Randall. Absolutely. Purpose alignment can definitely help to reduce stress, because when we're doing something that we're purposed to do, that we're passionate about, that we love, it actually lowers the cortisol levels in the body. Actually, studies have actually shown that. And so when you're doing something that you're purposed to do, when you're doing something that you love, it can have a positive impact on your body from a physical standpoint. I even just talked about a study that showed that people who actually regularly have engagement in hobbies and in social activities that they enjoy do have a stronger social network, actually see better immune functions. So that's extremely important. And so I want to just encourage you to do what you love, align with purpose, pursue your purpose and your passion. There's another study that was done in psychological science that showed that older adults in the study, and we talked about that population of people who were studied, if they did challenging activities that were enjoyable, even including learning a new skill or even doing a hobby, they saw significant improvements in their memory and their cognitive function over time. So that's a great question. Thank you so much for asking that question. I do appreciate you sharing that. So great question, Justin. That was a great question, Justin. Justina, I'm sorry. Randall said, how do I overcome self-doubt while pivoting careers? So Randall, I believe the way that you overcome self-doubt is it's part of your reflection in asking, why are you doubting yourself? What is it that is causing you to doubt yourself? And if you can actually identify what's causing you to doubt yourself, you can actually replace it with the correct information. If you're doubting yourself because there's some unawareness that you have regarding the area that you like to pivot into, well, then you can close that gap by obtaining information, either from informational interviews, from research, from taking the time to speak with a coach or a mentor. There's so many ways that you can overcome self-doubt. And another way that you can overcome self-doubt is positive affirmations, right? When you are telling yourself the correct thing, that is so important. And we can help to enhance our lives by giving ourselves the right narrative. And so you have to tell yourself that you owe it to yourself to do something that you love, something that aligns with your purpose and your passion, and that it is possible to do what you love, enjoy it, and get paid well for it. And again, like I said, you can use what is transferable from what you're doing now to what you're pivoting into. And I also want to share, I've said this on a past episode, you're not starting from scratch, you're starting from experience. So you're going from where you are and you're taking that experience and you're applying it somewhere else. I see a question from Matthew that says, what if family doesn't support my purpose? You know, Matthew, when I gave the example about pivoting, when I left an 11-year Air Force career and made the pivot from Intel to HR, and I talked about talking to people who were close to me, I had a family member who was not supportive. You know, even though I said I really believe this aligns with my purpose, I have a family member who wasn't supportive. But I had to make a decision to do what I knew was what I needed to do. And later, that same family member came back and apologized years later. But what I would say, and knowing what I know now, what I would try to do if I were you, if they don't support you, is ask questions. Ask why they don't support what it is that you desire to do, and see if you can close the gap, because they could actually have some misconceptions. There could be things that they're unaware of. So I encourage you to get to the bottom of why they're not supporting you, and maybe them not supporting you is actually what will motivate you to do more research, to be more intentional about the transition and the pivot. Don't let it hold you back, but maybe it's some areas that you can actually be more intentional with your pivot and with your transition. And maybe there's just some reassurance that you need to give them so that they'll be supportive. And maybe you need to tell them, you know, it would really help me if you would support me in this. This is what I need. So that's what I would recommend, Matthew. Thank you so much, Dirk. I really appreciate that. I appreciate you watching today. So thank you so much, Jason, for that compliment, and you're very welcome. And I do thank all of you for watching today and for engaging in the chat. I just want to conclude today with talking about some statistics, right? So there was a Gallup Global Emotions report in 2023 that showed that people who describe themselves as engaged in enjoyable daily activities, those group of people are 30% more likely to rate their health as excellent. So it's so important for you to engage in enjoyable daily activities. And what do we usually do every day? We normally go to our office if we're business owners. We go to our office or our work site if we're in the traditional workforce. So it's very important. There's actually the Harvard study of adult development discovered that individuals who maintained, a passion, people who remain passionate about, their interest into later life actually had better overall health outcomes than those who didn't. So there's clear evidence that I've talked about today that shows how doing what you love is good for you. It's good for you, for your spirit, for your body, for your mind. And there are consistent scientific studies that really show that when you engage in enjoyable activities, when you engage in meaningful, enjoyable activities, that these activities actually reduce your stress. They improve your mood. It boosts your physical health overall, and it really supports a cognitive well-being, and it also supports your social well-being. So I've got one more question for you all, and this is a question that I want you all to think about, because making time to do what you love, it's not just a luxury, it's actually a proven path to better health. And so what I want to ask you all today, and you're very welcome, Justina, thank you so much. What I want to ask you all today is, have you ever had a time, and you don't have to put this in the chat, but I want you to think about this. Have you ever had a time in your life that you were engaging in a career, in a business, or on an ongoing basis you were doing something that just no longer served you? It no longer aligned for you, and you knew it didn't align. You got to a point where it was no longer working for you, even if you were very successful in it. I want you to think about how it impacted you mentally, how it impacted you emotionally, how it impacted you physically. Think about how it impacted your family. So there is an impact that is going to either be positive or negative, right? So if we do what we love, we align with purpose and passion, and we're doing what we love, that's going to have a positive outcome, positive overall for our bodies, positive overall for those who are important to us, our friends, our family. But when we're doing something that we despise, when we're doing something that just no longer fits for us anymore, there is an adverse impact. And so I encourage you to ensure that you have the life that you want, that you build the life that you want. It's something that needs to be built. So I encourage you to take time regularly to assess purpose alignment in your life. Take time, be intentional. When you're intentional and you're positioning yourself, like the examples that I used earlier on how you can attract purpose aligned opportunities, then the opportunities are coming to you. You don't have to necessarily go looking for them. I also want to encourage you to just take time, because it's important, it's necessary each day to just take time to reflect daily, and make purpose-driven decisions when you're making decisions, because that's going to help you to have a better life. It's going to help you function better cognitively. It's going to help you have better interactions with those around you, those who you love. So I want to thank everyone for tuning in today to this episode of Purpose Today with Dr. April Dobson. Thank you for tuning in live and for all of your engagement. I haven't put anything in the chat on LinkedIn. Don't know if anyone's watching there, but I know on YouTube, people have been engaging on YouTube. Thank you for the engagement. I do really appreciate it, and I do encourage all of you to just live purposeful today and every day. And there is power. And we talked about the power of a purpose-aligned life and why your body needs your life to be aligned. So thank you so much for tuning in today. I appreciate all of you. I've put the link in the chat earlier for anyone who wants to book a 15-minute Zoom consultation about specifically how you can align, how you can pivot. That link is in the chat. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Have an amazing, amazing weekend, and remain purposeful today and every day. And if you're someone who knows that you need to pivot, you're not quite sure how to pivot, I encourage you to register for the From Unfulfilled to Unstoppable Purpose-Driven Career Pivot Master class. We're going to actually do it as a challenge for the next one that's coming up. And I just encourage you to do what you love what you do, and remain purposeful today and every day. Make it an amazing weekend. Thank you for tuning in.
Dreaming of writing a book, launching a podcast, or creating a digital course? Ready to finally align your career, creativity, and impact? The Purpose Aligned Life Premium Coaching Cohort is here to help you turn purpose into reality. You'll receive tailored services, a personalized one-on-one assessment, 10 weekly group sessions, and exclusive strategy session, all for your desired transformation.
And if you're interested in the next Purpose Aligned Life cohort, it begins May 7th. The link is in the chat for those who are interested in attending the next Purpose Aligned Life cohort starting on May 7th. Make it a great day and an amazing purpose-filled life.
Dreaming of writing a book, launching a podcast, or creating a digital course? Ready to finally align your career, creativity, and impact? The Purpose Aligned Life Premium Coaching Cohort is here to help you turn purpose into reality. You'll receive tailored services, a personalized one-on-one assessment, 10 weekly group sessions, and exclusive strategy session, all for your desired transformation.